Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial we are going to do a very simple tutorial on how to reduce the use of if and else statement in Python to reduce the time complexity of your Python applications or Python programs. So let's get started. I have written a simple Python program that you usually write traditionally. So I've just gone ahead, let me just explain to you the program, and then I'll explain to you how to reduce the time complexity of this program by reducing the use of if and else if statements in Python. So I have just, on the first line, I've just imported the typing module. So I've imported any and dictionary from the typing module, typing library, whatever you call it. Yeah, typing library. So if you don't know about the typing library, I have a whole tutorial on not typing type hints in Python. So if you want to check the tutorial on type hints, I'm going to leave the link in the description. I'm going to keep a card up here and you can click on that to get the link, the video on type hints in Python. So basically I have these functions. We're going to build a simple calculator. So basically, so I have these addition functions, I have the subtraction, the division, and the multiplication function, just the basic mathematics. And then so I have used underscore to show that they are private. Python, we use the underscore to show that they are private. Okay, so basically what you're going to do here, you have defined a function called action handler, and action handler takes in a request of whatever you want to do, and this request is of type dictionary. So you have just a request of type dictionary, and the dictionary takes in a string and then any. Okay, any could be a list, a tuple, or anything that you're passing. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to show what the request is going to do. So the request is going to be something very similar to this. So you can see I call the action handler and passing the action one, which is this. So the request is going to look something like this. It's going to have the two keys, which is going to be the action, which is going to have the value of whether it's division, multiplication, or addition, subtraction, and then the data is the data which we want to pass to this function to perform the operation that we want. So the request function, I have just passing the action handler. I have taken the request, and inside of the request function I have got then the action, and the action will be something, a string just like this, which could be a division, a multiplication, or addition. And I also gotten the data from the request, which the data is going to be a list like this. Okay, so I've checked if the action is going to be an addition action. So if this is addition, right, then we are going to go call the addition function handler, which is this one here, and then which is going to take in the two date numbers, which is just x and y, which is going to be the first element of the list and the second element of the list, and it's going to return to print out the result, right? So if I change this to be addition, and if I run the program, you can see the answer is 60. So so you can see the answer was 60, right? Because 20 plus 40, the answer is going to be 60. So even if I change this to be a multiplication, then we should get the answer to be around 800, I believe. So if I run this code again, let me just close that. So let me just close the terminal and then run that again. You can see the answer is 800 because 20 times 40 is 800. So basically we have this bunch of if and else statements. So we get the action of the request and we check if the action is addition, you're going to pass in the addition handler and pass in those arguments, and then if it's a subtraction, we're going to call the subtraction handler and pass in those arguments, which is going to be these values right here. And then if it's a division handler, we're going to call that. So we have this bunch of if and else statements, and then if you do not hit any of these if and else statement, you're going to raise a value error saying that operator option not found or something like this. That's something very simple, right? So you can see that we have a bunch of this if and else statement. Imagine that we had like maybe 100 functions that you want to perform. Means that you have to copy paste this code if and else statement 100 times. So this makes the code to be very complex, and you have to write a huge number of code just to do something very simple. And this also increases the time complexity and also takes a lot of time to write the program. So this increases time complexity to be O of n. So how can you reduce this thing if you want? So big O of n, so that's what I mean, big O of n. So that's the time complexity of this program, because the more actions we have, maybe you have more actions of mathematical operators, then we'll have more of this if and else, and then if statements. Just the code will be just humongous. So it makes the time complexity be O of n, big O of n. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to write a simpler program using the same concept. So let's make a file here. I'm going to call it no if else.py, just like that. And in this no if else, I'm going to copy everything from here. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it in here. So let me just delete this comment for now, delete all of this, and I'm going to also delete this action handler, delete this, and then in here I'm going to delete, let me just delete all of this function in total. So we have the action and this, we have this. So let's go ahead and see how we can reduce the code complexity of this. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to create a mapper. So I'm going to create something called a mapper. This is going to be a constant, so I'm going to keep it a capital letter, and it's going to be a dictionary. Okay, so the first one is going to be add, is going to have the option, and this will return to us handle the addition function. And you're going to have another string, this is going to be subtract, and this is going to handle the subtraction function. So handle subtraction this way, and then you're going to have the division, and this is going to handle, it's going to return to us the, it's going to map to the division function just here. And then you're going to have the final one, which is going to be, let me just make sure I get this mult, and this is going to return to us, let me just clear that, and then it's going to return to us underscore multiplication, just like that. So we have this mapper, and this mapper is just a dictionary that maps the actions to the different functions or their respective functions. Okay, that's what the mapper does. So down here I'm going to write a function, and we're going to call it action underscore handler, just like we had before. And this action handler is going to take in a request as usual, so we're going to pass in a request, and this is going to be of type dictionary, and a dictionary is going to be a string and the any type. Okay, just like that. And what this function is going to do, we're going to get the request, the action of that request underscore action. And the request action are going to be request dot get, because you're going to pass in this as a request. So you're going to request dot get, you're going to get the action field. Okay, so you're going to say the action key. So you're going to, let me, this actually quotes, so let me just action, and then you're going to get request request underscore data, and it's going to be request dot date dot get, sorry, my bad. So request dot get, and you're going to pass in data, just like this. So now that we get that, we have the request action, what action we want to perform, and the data. So we're going to call another function. So let me just call another function called request. I'm going to call request handler, and this request handler we're going to pass in the request action and the request data. Okay, I'm going to pass in the request action and the request data. Now what is this function request handler? So let's define it here, request underscore handler, and this request handler is going to take in the request action. Let me just copy this and bring it right here. So we're going to take in the request action and the request handler as our arguments, and what you're going to do here, we're going to get the handler option using the data that's been passed into our function. So we're going to call handler, and handler, let me just call it handler function, and the handler function is going to be a mapper. We're going to call the mapper, and you're going to get the request action, the request action. So this is going to return to us the request action. So imagine we pass in this, the request the action is just multiply, right? So in here, you're going to pass in the request action right here, and in your mapper you're going to get the request action, which is going to return to us this function called multiply function, which is this function right here. So if you get back this function, it's going to be stored in here. So we can call this function and pass in two parameters that is going to return to us the result. So we're going to do here is going to print the result. So we're going to get a handler function, and we're going to pass in the request data, which is going to be a dictionary. So we're going to pass the first element, and then the request data, and then you're going to get the second element of that data. So this actually data, just like that. So that's basically what we need. So now we can go ahead and just call this. So we can come in and say action handler, just like this, and we can pass in the action one, which is this action, which is this dictionary right here. So you can just cut that and bring it here. So let me just before the Python conversion and keep two space after that. So we're going to call this function handler, which is going here, and it's going to get the action of this, the action of the request, which is going to be multiply, and it's going to call, they're going to get the data, which is going to be this list, and it's going to call this function with this request handler function. It's going to pass in the request action and the request data, which is going to move down here, call this mapper, and it's going to get the action, which is the action in this case is multiply, and this is going to return to us this function right here. And in this function, we're going to store it in here, and using that function we can call that function, and we can pass in the first data and the second data, and then it's going to move up here, call this function, which is going to return to us the product of that those two numbers, and then you're going to simply print it out right here. So let's try to go ahead and try to run our code. So I'm just going to say Python 3 and then no if else, yeah, no if else, and then we can, because let me just bring here 20 multiplied by 40, it should be 800. So let's check what we get, and we get back 800. So let me just change the action, and then the action to be addition. So if I go back here and try to run the code again, we get back 600. So if I go back and change this to be subtraction and run the code again, and then let's see what we get back minus 20, because 20 minus 40 is a negative 20, right? And we can also call the division, which is going to be a div, just like this. Then we can run the function again, and we see what we get. So we can get back a 0.5. So that's basically how we can reduce the time complexity from O of n. Now the time complexity is at a constant time complexity, because we're not going through all these if and else if statements to check what action you have passed in. So that's how we can reduce the use of if and else statement, by simply using a mapper that returns to a function. In order you want to build a calculator, this is a better way to build it, because your time complexity is far less than O of n. So guys, this is all I wanted to talk about in this video. If you like this video so far, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. It helped me a lot and keeps me motivated to keep making these videos. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Keep safe.